swear or affirm that any testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth shall help you God? If you would please be seated, state your full name for the record, and spell your last name, okay?
Special Agent Peter Rudofski, that's Rudofski, and it's pronounced Rudolph and then Ski.
All right, Special Agent Rudofski, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, how are you?
I'm good. If you would, tell the jury just a little bit about yourself. Give us a little quick history of where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you ultimately ended up with your current position, please.
I'm originally from Oakland County, Michigan, Metro Detroit area. Became a reserve deputy in 2015, a reserve officer with Bay City Department of Public Safety while I was attending Saginaw Valley State University to get my bachelor's degree. And then went on to work at Oakland County Sheriff's Office as a special deputy. Graduated in 2017 at Saginaw Valley State University with a criminal justice degree. And then in 2017, moved to South Carolina, worked for the Department of Public Safety. In 2020, came to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, where I am currently. Began in the undercover vice unit, worked in the undercover vice unit until October of 22, where I currently am a special agent assigned to investigative services.
All right, and that was when again?
That was October of 22 is when I have my new position.
At some point in that position in SLED Investigative Services, did you get involved in the investigation of the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh at Moselle?
I did. November of 21 is when I was brought on to assist the Low Country region with this case.
November of 21 or November of 22?
21.
And let's talk a little bit more just about some of the experience you've had as a law enforcement officer. Have you had any experience with or had any training with using the FBI CAST program?
I did. I took a basic 16-hour cell site analysis course, which allowed me to use their system CAST-Viz, which is what if you saw Matt Wild's presentation, the mapping system and the plotting, it allows me to use that system and kind of do a basic level operation of it.
And what has been your primary focus of your involvement, at least in the investigation after you got involved in November 2021? And to be fair, that was November 2021. You were not working in investigative services when the Moselle event happened in June of 21. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So when you came on in November of 21, what's kind of been one of your main focuses and main assignments?
The main focus was to take all of the various forms of data, there's, a lot of phones, a lot of different data, and take all of that and put it into a readable timeline that you could start from, the beginning of the day to the end of the day and see everything with all those different phones and different, media sources all in one document.
Stand by for me just real quick. And I'm going to show you what's already been admitted into evidence as a defense exhibit 60 that was entered a long time ago in this trial. And do you recognize that? It's already in evidence.
I do.
All right, and what is that? Tell the jury what that is, please.
This would have been a rough draft or working draft of my timeline. I have a date of 1/12/23 at 3 p.m. was an updated time on this.
All right, and that was, who prepared that document there that was put in by the defense?
This was prepared by myself.
All right, and was that provided to the defense a week or so or sometime prior to trial?
It was.
All right, and on that particular document, does it say that it is a working draft?
It does. On the top here, it's going to have a yellow working draft, and then as you go through the document, it's going to have the same yellow on the top working draft and draft across the document.
All right, and as you have, how long have you been working on this document right here?
Roughly about a year on this document.
All right, and as new data came in, new data has been analyzed from various sources that have been put forward to this jury. Has that been incorporated into your timeline here?
It has.
All right, and since the time that this was initially prepared, has there been additional information added to it and that document continued to be worked on?
There has.
All right, and has that been provided to the defense as well?
It has.
going to show you what's been marked as States 520 and see if you recognize this document.
I do. This is going to be the full timeline. This is going to be the latest copy.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as 519, and do you recognize that document?
I do.
All right, tell me the jury what that is.
This is going to be a condensed timeline of this document here. Instead of having the whole day, it's going to have roughly from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. on June 7th,
2021?
2021.
Your Honor, at this time I would offer States 519 and 520 into evidence.
No objection.
They are admitted.
All right, we're going to get back to those in a second. All right, now you mentioned before that you had some training in using the FBI CAS program, is that correct?
That is correct.
And during the course of this investigation, actually fairly recently, did additional information come in related to what you've been working on?
That is correct.
Explain that to the jury. What information came in?
So on Friday, I received a call, would have been last Friday, from Attorney General Conrad that GM discovered some new data. I initially did a search warrant back in March of last year. No data was returned to us from OnStar. We get a call saying that they have data, that they're going to be sending it to me. I received an email on this past Saturday with 3 Excel files of data from GM.
All right, and tell the jury generally what was that data?
There was a lot of data in it. Mostly it was a lot of latitude and longitude plots. There was speed data in there, and a lot of data that when you start your car up, you might see like your engine lights and all that, those codes and stuff. A lot of the codes was on the data.
And for what vehicle was this for?
This is for the 2021 Suburban, driven by Alex Murdaugh.
Had GM previously responded to law enforcement inquiry that there was no such data?
That is correct. All we got was basic subscriber data for OnStar.
And when had they responded with that information?
I believe it was March 18th
Of
of 2022.
2022.
Yes.
And then during the course of this trial, they contacted and said, oh, wait, we found something.
That is correct.
All right, and since that time, have you downloaded that data into the CAS program and analyzed it in that fashion?
I have the CAS data is pretty much a tool that you can take different latitude, longitude, and different kind of data points, put it in the system in an Excel file, and it pretty much plots it and paints a nice picture for you.
And you have you worked in this case as you've been synthesizing the data from various sources? Have you worked or synthesized the data that came from Engineer Falfusky with the FBI?
Yes, sir.
And remind the jury who Falfusky is again, please.
He is a vehicle engineer from the FBI out of Washington, D.C., and he's the one that took the telemetry unit out of Alex Murdaugh Suburban, and he took all the data and recreated that, the year-long process to get all the data extracted that he previously testified on.
All right, and is that telemetry data generally synthesized or summarized along with other data in your timelines that are admitted into evidence?
Yes, it is.
Can you compare for the jury the difference between what the telemetry that Engineer Falfusky did and the OnStar data that GM recently provided?
The biggest difference you're going to see is on the telemetry data. If you remember, there was that Excel spreadsheet with all the different colors on it. It would show vehicle going into drive or park, moving, propulsion, that kind of stuff. The data we got back from OnStar is mostly a lot of latitude and longitude and speed and different kind of codes and whatnot. There wasn't really any location data in the FBI data. I don't believe there was any for that day. I believe it was all before. But we have mostly, GPS coordinates and whatnot. That's the biggest difference that you're going to see between the reports.
All right. And was the OnStar data recently received generally consistent with the telemetry data that had been developed by the FBI and Falfusky?
It was.
Just more specific?
Just more specific.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as States 524 to the trial and see if you recognize this document.
I do.
All right, and tell the jury what this is, please.
This was a presentation I created that is based on the GM OnStar data that was received last week for 6/7 of 21 for a 2021 Chevrolet Suburban.
Your Honor, at this time, I would offer in the evidence states 524.
Submitted.
All right, I'm gonna, if I could have computer input, please. I'm gonna go ahead and put Exhibit 524 up on the screen, the one we just admitted. All right, is this the 524 exhibit we just put into evidence?
That is correct.
All right, and that's your name up there, and it's got the CAS program and everything, is that right?
That is correct.
All right, moving on to this next slide, and can you see all right up there?
I can.
All right, if your little screen becomes hard to see, just let me know, and we can have you come down here and look at the big one. All right, what's up on this slide? Tell us what this represents to the jury.
What you're going to see up on the slide is going to be 3 file names that were received from GM. These are all 3 Excel files. This is what they were labeled to us from GM.
And what does this slide reflect?
This is an overview. Do you mind if I step down?
Yeah.
Point out. This is going to be an overview slide here. Top point is going to be Moselle, the Moselle House property. Bottom left, we're going to have Hampton. Far right is going to be Alameda. There are 4,820 data points that make up these lines here. When you zoom in a couple more slides, you're going to see the individual dots. This is kind of like an overlay of all of those dots. But just for reference, that's where we're at in the map.
And just very quickly, tell the jury, when we're talking about these dots, is that what the CAS report did? Is plot the dots based on the data provided by GM OnStar?
That is correct. Each dot is going to represent a latitude and longitude.
Did you have to manually enter in all 4,820, or how does that work?
I did not. The nice thing about the CAS system is it takes the Excel, you put it all in an Excel spreadsheet, and it does all that for you. Kind of like Google Earth would do in comparison.
All right, this next slide, what is that?
This is the same slide. It's just shown on a different, the last one was like a Google Earth kind of view photo. This is just a regular like map photo. It kind of just says, the location's a little bit easier to read. You got Hampton, Alameda, then you can see Islandton.
All right. Go on to this slide. Is this just a general representation where you can see some of the individual dots?
This is going to be the general overview of Moselle. Each little dot is going to either have a single set of data points or multiple set of data points. And this is for the whole day. This is not just for a certain time period. This is going to be for the whole day of June 7th, 2021.
All right, and then again, generally, what does this represent?
This is going to represent in Hampton around the law firm. Each dot is either a single set of data points or multiple set of data points. It's just kind of a zoomed in photo from what we saw previously.
And that's the defendant's former law firm?
That is correct.
All right, and what does this represent?
This is going to be the Alameda property that's been referred to previously. And this is just showing an overview of all the dots for that day.
All right, we're about to get into some slides that have very specific references to dots. And just generally, what are you about to go through with the jury as the specific data points that you're about to relate to them?
So for this presentation, we're going to go through all the different drives that occurred that day. You're going to have a data point in a slide that's going to show you the beginning, a couple slides during the drive, and then at the end. And we're going to have a couple different drives that we'll be walking through.
All right, so now we're at this slide. What's the title of this slide?
This is Alex leaving for work.
All right, and tell the jury, what image do we see right here on the screen?
So what you're looking at, this is going to be the property 4147 Moselle Road. This is going to be the main entrance, and you can see underneath the little box is going to be the house. You're going to see on the date, it's going to say June 7th, 2021, and this plot is going to be 120647.
All right, and is that what time the Suburban got underway, according to the GM OnStar data?
That is correct. It does match up.
Moving to this next slide, what does this represent?
This next slide is representing his vehicle making a right onto Moselle Road during his drive.
All right, what time is that?
The time is 12:07:40 p.m.
All right, come on down here if you would, just real quick, and explain to the jury this box, and in particular, if there's a little arrow on this box, point that out to them so that they can understand specifically what's being referenced with the blue and white box.
So anytime you see a blue box here, it's a little hard to see, but the little kind of triangle down here, that's where it's pointing to on which red dot is referring to. So anytime you see the box, look for that little triangle, and that's going to tell you the area that the vehicle, the latitude, longitude correlates with.
All right, we'll have to borrow the stick real quick. So this little blue triangle right there is what we're talking about?
That is correct.
And it's pointing to that little red dot there, is that right?
That's correct.
And we're not going to go through all 4,820 dots, but just representative dots of these various trips, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
I just want to point out quickly, you might see a couple other data points. That could be for another trip. Sometimes they have the same latitude and longitude, but different times. So you might see a couple different data points, but that's an explanation for that.
All right, and then the one that's highlighted, though, is the one the information is being referred to right there, is that correct?
That is correct.
And right here, we see what?
You see June 7th, 2021,
All right, and then-
12:07:40 p.m.
All right, thank you. All right, before we move on to the next slide, what's the car doing at this point in time?
The car is moving.
All right, and what location is it, just generally in orientation to the property,
Moselle Road coming out of that main gate,
that driveway?
main driveway.
Moving on to the next one, what does this represent?
This is 12:07:42, and this is representing, you're going to see a mile per hour is going to be the new line that just showed up. And this is showing 12 miles an hour the vehicle's traveling.
Generally on these blue boxes is the little arrow at the bottom. Is that kind of in the center bottom in most of these little blue and white boxes?
That is correct.
All right, and some of the entries have a miles per hour reading, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's being recorded by the vehicle and by GM OnStar?
And it's being uploaded to their servers.
All right, and so what was the speed of the defendant's vehicle at this time?
Approximately 12 miles an hour.
Now, on here, it's in reference to miles per hour, because we're Americans. But the data that you got, what unit was it in?
Kilometers.
All right, and so did you convert that data to miles per hour?
In an Excel spreadsheet, yes.
All right, and just plugged in what the conversion is, and it converted to miles per hour?
Yep, you just do the equal sign, then you do the conversion, and it converts for you.
All right. All right, going on to this next slide. Is this still on the trip that morning to the law, or that afternoon to the law firm?
That is correct.
All right, and very quickly tell the jury where we're at.
We are still on Moselle Road. We're past the Godley Farms Road, which would be another reference point.
And that's the residence up here at the top?
That is correct.
All right, that's the kennels way up at the very top?
That is correct.
All right, what is the date and time of this reading?
12:08:30, and that is showing approximately 55 miles an hour.
Okay. All right, tell me about this next one.
This is still on the drive to the law firm. This is showing at 12:16 on the dot, and we're showing approximately 60 miles an hour driven.
All right. And where is the arrow on this particular one?
So on this box, the arrow is actually going to be on top, and it's pointing to one of the data points.
The speed again?
Approximately 60 miles an hour.
Going on to slide 13 for the record, what does this reflect?
This is reflecting coming into Hampton to the law firm. And this is actually, if you look, it's pretty much right on top of the law firm. It's 12:21:37, and we have no speed associated.
All right, and then the next slide, slide 14.
This is 12/24/06 with no speed reported. This is when he's arriving. This is the last data point I could find.
All right, so he's arrived at work at that time, correct?
That is correct.
12:46?
12/24/06.
Going to this next slide, explain to the jury what this is, and we're slide 15 for the
So after each drive, we're going to have a slide that's going to show a max speed from all the data sets on Excel. The max speed for his drive from Moselle to the law firm that morning was 12:13:19. The max speed was 65.8 miles per hour, and the average speed of that whole drive was 37.24 miles an hour, and that time was at 12:13:19 during his drive.
All right, we're moving now to slide 16. Tell the jury what this represents.
This one's going to represent Alex leaving work at the law firm, heading to his house. It shows at 6:24:18. It shows him going 8 miles an hour, just starting to leave.
All right, PM
PM,
and the speed.
approximately 8 miles an hour.
Going on slide 17.
This one's showing at 6:26:54 PM. It's showing his Suburban going approximately 42 miles an hour on his drive home. The arrow is going to be on the top right.
And
It
the
might
speed.
be cut off a little bit. 42 miles an hour.
All right, and then is that the arrow right there?
That is correct.
All right, at the top,
The top of the screen.
about 42 miles an hour.
That is correct.
Slide 18, what does this reflect?
This is going to reflect that Alex arriving home at 6:42:54 with a miles per hour of 0. This is one of the last data points that without speed.
6:42 PM arriving back at the residence,
That is correct.
and the arrow is pointing to what?
The residence, a little bit to the side, but it's the residence right there.
All right, and tell the jury now on slide 19, what does this represent?
So this is going to be from his drive home from the law firm to Moselle. It represents at 6:34:01 during his drive. The max speed obtained was 54.4 miles per hour. The average speed during this drive was 41.39 miles an hour. And you can see the location somewhere off of, I believe, 63.
Driving home, what was his max speed?
54.4 miles per hour was the max speed driving home.
All right, slide 20.
All right, so now we're at where Alex is leaving for Alameda. This is going to be 9:07:06 PM.
Okay. And again, we'll go through the timeline in a bit, but is this generally consistent with some of the telemetry data that Falfosky did?
It is
Suburban goes underway at what time?
9:07:06 according to this data.
Moving on to the next slide.
Like
Where's
previous,
the Suburban- Where's the Suburban at this point?
like previous slides, this is going to be the Suburban pulling out onto Moselle Road, coming right out of the main entrance, going about 15 miles an hour. This is going to be at 9:08:06.
What do we have right here?
This is going to be 9:08:18 with speeds approximately 37 miles an hour.
Where's the Suburban heading at this point?
Towards Alameda.
All right, slide 23. We have a reference point here. Can you explain what that is to the jury?
So the orange dot, that's going to represent approximately where Maggie Murdaugh's phone was located the following day on June 8th, 2021.
All right, and do we have a time reference for the Suburban at this time?
We do. It's going to be 9:08:36 seconds, and it's showing a speed of 42 miles an hour.
Moving on to the next one. Tell the jury what this is.
In the grayish white-looking box, you can still see the little circle where it says Maggie Murdaugh's phone location, and right under it's where the pinpoint's going to be. It's going to be 9:08:36, 42 miles an hour.
Next slide, 25. Slide 25.
Upper halfway portion of that box, you're going to see the circle again, the orange circle. That's going to be Maggie Murdaugh's phone. And at 9:08:42, we have the Suburban traveling approximately 45 miles an hour.
After passing that location, does the defendant's vehicle start to accelerate?
It does.
Going to slide 26, tell us what this references.
So we also have Maggie Murdaugh's phone location. This is just another data point. There's several throughout the road. This one is showing 908.54, 44 miles an hour.
Slide 27.
This is going to show you another overview of this data point in location to Maggie Murdaugh's phone, 908.54, 44 miles an hour.
Slide 28.
This one's further down the road past Godley Farms Road, just for a reference point. This is 909.06, traveling 48.6 miles per hour.
Slide 29.
This is another data point in reference to where the phone location is, 909.18 p.m., traveling 49 miles per hour.
And slide 30.
This is going to be another data point at 909.18, traveling approximately 52 miles an hour.
Slide 31.
This is also going to be another one on Moselle Road, coming up to Dobson Road. It's going to be 909.24 p.m., traveling approximately 52 miles an hour.
And then slide 32.
This is also going to be another data point on that road, 909.42, traveling approximately 54 miles an hour on Moselle Road.
All right, going to slide 33, has our sort of map orientation changed?
It has. This is still on the drive to Alameda. I believe this is going to be 63 or Snyder's Highway or Walterboro Highway. This is at 9:13:30 p.m., showing a speed of 68 miles an hour on the drive to Alameda.
All right. I'm going back to slide 3. Do that real quick. And the slide that we were just seeing when the orientation changes, can you come down real quick and kind of describe generally what we were looking at when we started, and then the where we're at on that slide that we were just about to look at?
All right, so where we started on this drive would have been right up here, 4147 Moselle Road. 4147 Moselle Road. This would have been Moselle Road that we just showed all those data points. Would have made a right onto Dobson Road, and then a right onto 63 Snyder's Highway. It's approximately somewhere around here on Snyder's Highway where that data point we just looked at.
All right, returning to slide 33. All right.
And right there is going to be approximately where the data point is at.
Okay, and what's the speed there?
68.7 miles per hour.
All right. Going on to slide 34.
This is going to be at 9:14:36, showing an approximate speed of 69.4 miles per hour. And it's going to be on the top portion.
All right, moving on to slide 35.
This is going to be at 9:16:48, showing approximately 70 miles an hour. It's going to be the top portion of your screen here, coming into Varnville.
All right, and down at the bottom center of the screen, what is that? Right here.
That is going to be the Alameda property, and just to reference, this is going to be coming into Varnville.
All right, right here, what do we have on slide 36?
This is going to be the Alameda property. You can kind of see it behind the other record part, but it's showing at 9:22:06, his Suburban's Point, making a left into the Alameda property.
Slide 37, what do we see here? First of all, orient the jury as to what the map image reflects, and then describe the data point, please.
So the map image is going to reflect, you're going to make a left into the driveway. There's a railroad track, I believe here. It's a curved driveway coming in, and then right here is going to be the house. There's a little carport right here, and then the driveway is this whitish part that you see on your screen.
All right, and then up here, generally in the property, we can see a roof and that sort of thing. What generally are those?
Those are going to be some outbuildings on the property. The trees are there's a decent amount of trees right here, but there's, I believe, 2 outbuildings right here.
This white area right here just above the house, what is that?
That's going to be where you would park. It's a paved area in front of the carports.
Where do the data points reflect Suburban going, though, when it arrives?
The data points for the Suburban, it looks like it went toward, like, a little bit into the grass, closer to the wood line over here, and that's going to be at 9/22/39.
Closer to the wood line and the outbuildings?
That'd be correct.
All right, and again, what time is the arrival at Alameda?
9/22/39. And this is just, so that this right here is going to be a better overview without the box. You can see right here is going to be the driveway leading in. And this is where a carport would be, where the vehicles would be parked. And then this is the main house here. And you have your outbuildings.
Right here, we have kind of a line of data points right there in the grassy area behind the house.
We do.
All right, going on to slide 39, tell the jury what those calculations represent, please.
So this is going to represent the drive from Moselle to Alameda. During that drive, the Suburban reached a max speed of 74.4 miles per hour during that drive and averaged 51.94 miles per hour. And this is the data point with the highest speed obtained.
Was that top speed higher than any speed he achieved when he went to work earlier that day?
That is correct.
Is that average speed higher than any average speed he had when he went to work that day?
That is correct.
Or returned from work?
That's correct. Want me to stay down here?
You can go back up. Thank you. That max speed again is what on the trip to Alameda?
74.4 miles per hour.
And the time again that he
9
arrived?
At Alameda,
Yes.
I believe it's going to be 9:20.
Let me back up.
If you go back.
We're back up to?
9:22:39. So 9:22:39, he reached his max speed at 9:14:13.
On June 7th, 2021 at 9:22 p.m. is it dark?
That is correct.
All right, we've gone on to slide 40. Please tell the jury what this represents.
This is going to represent at 9:43:18. This is when we first saw movement. And this would be Alex leaving Alameda en route back to 4147 Moselle Road. It's shown approximately 2 miles an hour.
All right, and the time again?
9:43:18.
The arrival time that you just testified?
That's correct.
What was the arrival time that you testified?
9:22,
And he's leaving at what time?
9:43,
So approximately how long?
20 minutes.
Going on to slide 41, let me ask you this. Does the data reflect that that the car pauses for a period of time while in that driveway area of Alameda?
It does, about halfway between on the driveway.
Come on down and show the jury if you will. I just sent you back, I'm sorry.
So halfway during, so this is the driveway right here. So this is the driveway just for reference. We see what looks like a data point, I believe, right here. And if we click on that data point, it's going to be about a minute until this data point will show up in the property.
All right, and then on slide 41, we have what's the time stamp that you have on that one? And show the arrow to the jury too, please.
9:45:22, and the arrow is going to be all the way down at the bottom, right across the railroad tracks, turning onto the Yemassee Highway.
At 9:45.
That is correct, 9:45:22.
All right, moving on to slide 42. Please tell the jury what this data point represents.
This slide's going to show you the drive back from Alameda to Moselle. This is just a data point on Yemassee Highway. It's 9:46:01, and this one doesn't have a speed.
Going to slide 43.
This is also...
Orient the jury and tell them the data point, please.
So on the bottom, you have Alameda, going through Varnville, and then heading up to Moselle. This is at 9:51:30. This is showing approximate speed of 74 miles an hour. It's going to be the top portion of that box.
That's the arrow at the top center.
That's correct.
Slide 44, please tell the jury what this data point represents.
Top of the map, you're going to see Moselle, and this is going to be on 63. This is going to be at 9:54:24. We have approximately 70 miles an hour.
And the arrow is located where?
It's going to be on the bottom.
Slide 45, what do you have right here?
This is going to be at 9:59:18. This is Moselle Road coming up to Godley Farms Road for reference. Top portion on the left is going to be the Moselle property. This is at 9:59:18, showing a speed of 57 miles an hour.
All right, we moved on to slide 46. Tell me about that one, please.
So this is going to be the arrival into Moselle. This is showing 10 o'clock on the dot, showing 7 miles an hour, making a left into the main driveway.
10 o'clock on the dot.
That is correct.
And slide 47.
This is about 30 seconds later. This is 10 o'clock. This is about halfway down the driveway of the main house, showing 22 miles an hour.
All right, slide 48. Tell the jury about calculations reflected on this slide.
So this is going to be from his drive back from Alameda to Moselle Road. The max speed that was obtained during that drive was at 9:51:43 seconds, was 80 miles an hour. The average speed was 46.52 miles an hour during that drive.
Is that average going to speed going to also, though, include that minute where the car paused at the driveway in Alameda?
That's correct.
The top speed was what?
80.16 miles an hour.
And at this time period, would it have been dark outside?
It would.
Let me ask you this. You're a law enforcement officer that works in this area of the state, correct?
That is correct.
And have you, during the course of your law enforcement career, have to respond to emergencies or call for services and that sort of thing?
That is correct.
All right. And this particular road that we've been talking about, these roads, have they recently been paved?
They have.
And was that after the murders occurred on June 7th, 2021?
They were.
Or were you familiar with the condition of the roads and what they were like on that route prior to them being repaved?
I am.
All right. And tell the jury what running code is. If you have an emergency or a call for service, an emergency, what is running code?
Running code is where you activate your blue lights and siren, and you go above the posted speed limit at a safe fashion to get to your arrival in a safe manner.
That's when the cops turn on the lights and they're heading to the scene.
Yep, blue lights and sirens.
All right. And you're traveling as fast as you possibly can and still be reasonably safe. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And have you had a call prior to this road being paved to run code down that road?
That's correct.
All right. Would you at night, or did you ever at night, on the roads as they existed at the time of June 7th, 2021, run in code with your lights on, run 80 miles an hour down that road?
I would not, no.
And why not? Tell the jury why not.
Due to the time of night, the heavy deer population out there, as everyone could probably see, I mean, deer will run out all the time, and especially with all your lights, it attracts the deer. So it's actually worse having your blue lights on sometimes. The deer actually are kind of attracted to that light. And then also the road conditions, the road was, was a lot of potholes. And
was the defendant's top speeds on both the trip to and from Alameda in excess of any max speed in his trips previous in the day?
that'd be correct. Posted speed limit is 55 on 63.
All right, we've gone on now to slide 49, and tell the jury what this represents.
This is going to be a timestamp of 10:05:06 p.m., and this is showing Alex Murdaugh leaving for the kennels.
And where's the dot on this particular slide?
The dot's going to be on the bottom towards the middle, right by the house.
Moving on to slide 50, tell me what this represents.
This is also showing the drive over to the kennels. The timestamp of this is 10:05:39.
And where's the arrow?
The arrow is going to be on the bottom. You kind of see it by the field.
All right, going on to slide 51, what does this represent?
This is just saying the max speed was obtained 28 miles an hour at 10:05:49 during that trip.
Okay. And then slide 52.
This is showing the Suburban arriving at the kennels, 10:05:57 p.m.
Backing up still on slide 52, can you remind the jury, and we'll talk more about this with the timeline in a minute, but generally what time was the 911 call?
10:06. I do not know the seconds.
And to your recollection, during the 911 call, did the defendant say he was returning back to the residence during that 911 call?
He did.
All right, and so we're on slide 53. What does this reflect?
This would be him heading back to the house around 10:11:54.
All right, slide 54.
This is just also showing him driving back to the house at 10:12:18 p.m.
Slide 55.
It's just another slide at 10:12:30 p.m. showing 32 miles an hour.
And where's the dot?
The dot is going to be on the bottom, and it's going to be on the main drive to the house.
Slide 56.
This is going to be at 10:13:54 showing 2 miles an hour, and it's right next to the house.
All right, slide 57.
This is just showing on that max speed from going from the kennels back to the house was at 10:12:19, and the Suburban reached 35.78 miles an hour approximately.
Slide 58.
This is just showing the drive back down to the kennels. This is during the 911 call at 10:14:30 p.m., showing approximately 24 miles an hour.
And then the final slide in this exhibit, what is that?
This is just showing the max speed at 10:14:25 of 30 miles an hour during that drive.
Does that complete your placing of those GM OnStar data points into the CAS program and these slides that you relayed to the jury?
It does.
Your Honor, about to move on to another exhibit that's lengthy. This might be a good time. I would request or suggest a break at this time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break at this time. Please do not discuss the case.
may now be seated.
Yes, sir.
Simple question. I've talked to Mr. Waters. He thinks he's probably going to go close to lunch until his right. I mean, I'm just guessing. And then we've probably got 2 hours across on this witness. So we've got some short witnesses, we've got some long witnesses we could bring once they rest. We've got a motion for directed verdict, which I don't think will take that long, 15, 20 minutes. I mean, I don't want to start a witness today and finish him on Tuesday if it's a long witness. So should we tell maybe some 30-minute, 40-minute witnesses to be here about this? I just don't want the court to sit here or have to go home without maximizing use of your time.
Well, certainly, I do not like a witness to be on the stand over the weekend because we end up starting back at the beginning. Pardon?
It's a 3-day weekend. It's not just a weekend. I mean, it's
Right. We have to be flexible. I don't know how long all this is going to go. Is this your last witness, Mr. Waters?
Barring some need for an audible, yes, sir.
So you should be ready to do some witnesses today, I would think.
yes, sir.
Assuming the case proceeds beyond directed verdict.
Yes, sir.
Well, you know,
I think you've answered. You don't want to start a 3 or 4 hour witness this afternoon.
not at all. No.
Yeah, okay. That answers the question. We may come up a little bit short, sort of hard to gauge, but we've got some relatively short witnesses, and then we've got rather long witnesses.
I understand.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah. I want to put on the record that I received a note from the jury after returning from lunch yesterday. The jury somehow thought that they would elect their own foreperson. And asked me if they whether there's a reason for appointing someone else or if we could keep the same foreperson. I don't know who gave them the notion that they would select their own foreperson. And I know, as I told them, that it's done differently in different places. I appoint forepersons, and I did not change. I did not accede to them saying we already have a foreperson. But that was the reason I gave an explanation right after lunch, explaining to them that the fact that you are a foreperson doesn't give you any more authority than any other juror. But I want to make this note part of the record.
If I could also, if we conclude this witness, and obviously I would request at the conclusion of that witness that there be at least a brief recess just to do an exhibit check and any housekeeping. If we are going to rest at that time, if I could have an opportunity quickly to do that outside of the presence of the jury.
Okay.
2 short witnesses, it sounds like, at best this afternoon. Thank you, Your Honor.
Very good. Bring the jury. Very well, you may continue.
May it please the court, Your Honor. All right, Special Agent Rudofski, we just finished with the GM OnStar data. That was 524. And again, just to remind the jury, you prepared two timelines. One is 520, which is the big one, correct?
That is correct.
So with a more expansive timeline relevant to June 7th, correct?
That is correct.
And surrounding days, correct? And then this one, which is 519, which is a condensed version of this that focuses just on the hours, evening hours of the day of the murders, correct?
That is correct.
All right. At this time, I'm going to publish 519 to the jury, and let's discuss it. All right, just real quick, I want to go through this opening page, and this is the condensed one, 519, is that correct, up on the screen?
That is correct.
All right, and has your name on it, correct?
That is correct.
All right, and then we have a reference guide right here, and if you would, just explain just some of the various sources of information that have been admitted before this jury that you ultimately synthesize into this summary timeline.
Okay. What we have here is we're going to have cell bright extraction report. It's going to be for Paul Murdaugh, which as you go through this timeline, PM is going to refer to Paul Murdaugh. We're going to have AM, which is going to be Alex Murdaugh's cell phone extraction, and then MM, which is going to be Maggie Murdaugh. So anytime you see the abbreviations, that's what it's going to refer to. We have their cell phone extractions here. We also have the FBI telemetry report. We have the FBI CAS data. We also have different reports from the phones, like the Axiom reports. We have an ALPR report in here, which is actually probably not in the condensed one. That's going to be automated license plate reader data for Maggie Murdaugh's Mercedes. We're also going to have some Snapchat data, and then data from Rogan Gibson, Paul Murdaugh, Alex Murdaugh, Maggie Murdaugh, and Buster Murdaugh's CDRs, which is the call data records from Verizon.
Let me pause you real quick. So we have extractions. Tell the difference to the jury, and I don't mean to point out what this stick, between an extraction and then CDRs or sealed data records, please.
So the extraction is going to be what, like Britt Dove testified, what he actually extract out of the phone. And then the CDRs is going to be what Verizon testified, which is going to be their records of phone calls and text messages. So two separate data sources from two separate entities.
All right, and continue on, please, with the remainder of the data in your summary timeline.
We have referenced here a couple different, like Knowledge C database. That's kind of like the Axiom database. It's just another database that was, records were provided to me from. We also have a PMPED building access log. And then in the big timeline, we have the 911 recordings. And then just want to point out a Dylan Hightower extraction. That would have been the first phone extraction of Alex's phone 2 days after the 7th.
All right.
And then we have the GM OnStar data.
Okay. All right, and then down at the bottom here, we have some color-coded things on the left of the screen, and then a box on the right. So quickly explain to the jury what those reference points mean, please.
On the right of the screen, you're going to see the 2021 Suburban log file excerpt. Frykowski from FBI had that Excel sheet with all the different colors and everything. This is going to be a reference guide when you're going through this, what the colors actually mean on the data.
Right,
And
give
then,
an example of what you mean by that.
so you're going to see kind of that reddish, pinkish color. That's going to mean that the infotainment center is booting up. So when we go through this timeline, you're going to see that data section highlighted with that color. That's what you'll know is happening with the data. If you see pink, it's going to be a propulsion. When you see blue, it means that it's either in and out of park. And that's kind of just how we're going to be reading it as we go along the timeline.
Right, and then these addresses have colors over here, and just, we don't have to go through every one, but the first one, that red one, what one is that?
4147 Moselle Road.
All right, so if we see that little red box with an arrow on it, that's Moselle on the map.
That is correct.
And then the green is what?
It's going to be Alameda, the Alameda property.
We'll talk about the others as we go through. All right. All right, let's start moving through it. Just give me 1 second. All right, all right, so this timeline, this condensed timeline begins roughly when?
Around 6 p.m.,
All right, on what day?
June 7th, 2021.
All right, and let's start at 6:04, and I want to move through this expeditiously, and we'll stop and talk about some specific entries as we go through, okay?
Okay.
All right, and so starting there at 6:04, does Paul Murdaugh have any phone activity?
He does. He calls Will Loving. And as you can see in the parentheses, it's going to say PM extraction. That means it was pulled off of Paul Murdaugh's phone extraction, just for reference.
All right, and Will Loving, that's the individual that testified weeks ago.
That is correct.
And 6:08, what activity we see on Paul's phone?
He makes an outgoing call to Dad, which is identified as Alex Murdaugh. It shows answered, but 1 second long.
All right, and what was the source of that information?
That was from Paul Murdaugh's phone extraction. It does not show up in Alex Murdaugh's original logical dump or the second one from Britt Dove, but it does show up on his CDRs from Verizon. So that'd be the records that Verizon actually keeps for the phone.
All right, and can a user of a phone affect the CDRs that are with the Verizon phone company?
They cannot, no.
Can the user affect what data remains on their phone?
Yes.
And frequently throughout this timeline, do we see instances in which there was a call logged on on Alex Murdaugh's CDRs, but was missing from his phone from the extraction?
That is correct.
Don't leave the witness.
All right. Can you explain any difference between the CDRs as it relates to Alex Murdaugh's phone and whether or not there's any missing call logs on the extraction from his phone?
As we go through this extraction, you're going to see that in multiple instances, we're going to have calls showing on Alex Murdaugh's CDRs that we could not find on the logical extraction or the Britt Dove full extraction of Alex's phone. And that's going to be notated on the bottom if it was not in the extraction.
All right. 6:09:48. Do we have any communications on Maggie's phone?
This is going to be a iMessage from Maggie Murdaugh to Paul Murdaugh stating, "You okay getting a little foot massage? Then I'm heading home." And that was obtained from Maggie Murdaugh and Paul Murdaugh's phone extractions.
At 6:10:01, going to the bottom of this page, that being page number 2, is there another message from Maggie to Paul Murdaugh?
This is also going to be an iMessage to Paul stating, "Love you, and Blanca cooked you dinner."
Moving on to page 3. And what does this reflect right here?
This is going to be from FBI agent Matt Wild. This is going to be from his report. This is for Paul Murdaugh. You're going to identify that on the right-hand corner where it says Paul. Just for reference, anytime you see a map, if you look on the right-hand corner, it's going to tell you whose map that is for.
All right. And just generally remind the jury what this map reflects, please.
This is just showing generally where the cell towers are located and where the area, whenever like a phone call or text message, where it was pinging during that time for Paul.
And these little red things right here with the angles on it, what are those reflect?
That's going to be where the cell tower is and what angle the call would have originated or, take place from.
All right, and down at the bottom, what's the first time recorded for Paul's cell phone as it pings on these cell towers?
It's going to be 6/17/42.
And can you describe to the jury generally where these cell towers reflect Paul's phone is moving?
So it'd be at the Beaufort area down the right-hand side, moving up towards Moselle, which you can see in the far right corner, that little badge-looking red dot.
All right, up here at the top center, what is that right there?
That's going to be an arc. It's just a distance arc.
But the red dot, what is that?
The red dot, that's going to be 4147 Moselle Road.
All right. And what times does Paul's phone ping off any cell tower near Moselle?
6:53 p.m., 7:05, and 7:30:05.
All right, and we see a 3 right there. Is that what does that 3 refer to as it relates to that cell tower location near Moselle?
It's just going to show you what side of the cell tower it's on, what arc.
And what time does it first ping on Sector 1 facing Moselle?
7:05:33 p.m.
All right, moving to, continuing on page 3, we have a time reference at 6:20:53. Can you explain to the jury what, if anything, that indicates?
We have Maggie Murdaugh. She received a phone call from Proctor Marion. That's how it showed up in her phone. Through the phone number, it's actually Marion Proctor. That's just how it relays on the phone. And it shows rejected.
All right, and after that, what, if any, communications were there?
Right after that, at 6:21:28, Maggie Murdaugh sends a text message to Marion stating, "Can't talk, getting food massage. We'll call you back." That was from her phone extraction.
Moving on to 6:23, are there any communications with Maggie and Paul?
There are. Paul sends a message to his mom at 6:23:27 stating, "What did she make?" And then Maggie replies back shortly after saying, "Country fried steak and mac and cheese."
Below that, we have a orange and blue box. What does that represent?
So this is going to be from the FBI telemetry data from that Excel spreadsheet that's already into evidence. And this is just showing with that color coordination I talked about earlier. The orange is going to show a system startup. And from previous testimony, that could be, unlocking a car, locking it, getting in close range with the key fob, opening up the rear hatch. Just something that makes, when you get in your car, you kind of hear that noise before you start it up, the telemetry. It's just inner workings, anything could really cause it.
Well, I'm asking you, going back to that map, the incident location at Moselle where Paul and Maggie were found murdered, what county is that in?
That's going to be Colleton County. And then if you look, we have the pink, which is going to kind of show propulsion, and then blue, which is going to show some kind of shift in the vehicle transmission.
All right, down to the bottom, 624, what is that?
624-2, that shows from the FBI report, telemetry report, that the Suburban shows a device connection.
That would be Alex Murdaugh's phone?
That'd be correct.
Moving on to 6:24 p.m. Is there any data points as it relates to the defendant's Suburban?
It is. We have one at 6:24:18 around the PMPED law firm.
All right, and what time is that? No, 6:24?
6:24:18, correct.
All right, and that map there, is that a data point from the CAS data that you just explained to the jury?
That is correct.
Moving down, we have some various messages from some of the individuals, is that right?
We do.
Okay.
We have Alex Murdaugh receiving a phone call from Jay Parker at 6:25. 6:27, Paul is sending a message to Britt saying maybe Saturday. He calls Robert Boyle shortly after, and then at 8:38 p.m., Rogan calls Marion Dempsey.
And to your recollection, what is Marion Dempsey to Rogan at this period of time?
I believe it's a girlfriend currently at the time.
All right, moving on to page 5. What does this map represent? Who is this from, this map?
This is going to be from Matt Wild from the FBI. This is directly from his report.
And what phone does this map reflect?
Top right, it's going to say Alex Murdaugh with associated cell phone.
All right, and then there's a box below that. Explain to the jury again what that box represents.
So the box below that, that's going to represent all the times that the pings were logged that Matt Wild actually put in the report.
And then the black circle with the angle in the middle, what is that?
That's going to show you the cell tower and then the kind of angle that the calls or text would have been in.
And what property is in the sector of that cell tower?
4147 Moselle Road. And it's identified by that red badge-looking dot.
On here, this box with the times, those are times of what again?
This would have been times of activity that would send to a cell tower that they would have data on.
In the 6 o'clock hour, what is the latest time period that you see Murdaugh's phone reflecting activity?
6:52 p.m.
And then after that, what's the next time period that you've seen reflecting activity?
The next time showing on the map is going to be 9:04:24 p.m.
Does the defendant's cell phone reflect any activity between 6:52 and 9:04?
Between 6:52 and 9:04, there's no activity reflected.
At least on the cell ping.
That is correct.
All right, at 6:40:01, what activity, if any, is reflected?
Paul calls, it's going to show up as PA in the extraction, which is Alex Murdaugh based on the phone number. It shows it was answered, it was 2 minutes and 29 seconds long. This call also does not show up in the phone extractions for Alex Murdaugh, just on his CDRs.
It was in the defendant's CDRs?
That is correct.
All right.
It was also in Paul's phone. It shows the phone call.
6:42, and what if anything's reflected?
We have a Suburban device connection to iPhone from the FBI report at 6:42:48, and at 6:42:54, we show the Suburban arrives at 4147 Moselle Road based on the GM OnStar data.
All right, and going on to page 6, is that your CAS map reflecting that data point you just described?
That is correct. It's going to be the 6:42:54 data point.
And what happens at that moment?
That's when Alex Murdaugh is going to arrive back from the PUP and PMPED law firm from work that day.
All right, moving on. 6:43:50, what if any activity do you see?
It shows that Maggie Murdaugh's phone had a missed call from PA, which is Alex Murdaugh. It shows missed, but also it shows up in Alex Murdaugh's CDRs, but does not show up in either one of the phone extractions.
All right, and moving on, we have a couple of the orange and white boxes. Tell the jury again what those reflect.
So these are just going to reflect some kind of system boot up. Doesn't mean the car moved or did anything. It just means that door was opened. It just something triggered the car to kind of do a little internal boot up from previous testimony.
At 6:53:44, what if any activity do you see?
Paul Murdaugh calls John Marvin. It shows 1 minute and 42 seconds long, and that's based off of Paul's phone extraction.
So your understanding, when you see those times of the call lengths, does that also include connection time as well?
It does. Based on previous testimony from Verizon, that could include how long it takes to get the actual network connected.
All right, and then at the 7 o'clock hour, what if any communications are on Paul's phone?
So Paul sends a text message to Claude C.B. Rowe saying, "Are you coming tomorrow?" And then shortly after, he sends another text saying, "Sunflowers died. We need to plow them under ASAP." And that was based off his phone extraction.
Moving on now to page 7. Do we have some activity at 7:02:29?
We do. Maggie Murdaugh calls Alex Murdaugh. It shows 2 seconds, and this also does not show on Alex Murdaugh's extraction. It shows on his CDRs, and it also shows on Maggie's phone that Maggie called Alex, but does not show on Alex's phone that call was there.
Missing from his phone, though, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
Missing in the call log of the phone.
All right, 7:03 to 7:11. What, if anything, is reflected on Alex's phone?
His phone's showing approximately 165 steps taken during that time frame.
And then what happens at 7:04?
704, through the catch data database, it shows that Paul Murdaugh is at the residence of 4147 Moselle Road.
Does Maggie's phone reflect any activity as we move on to the 7:04 time period?
Her phone showed that between 704 and 817, her phone was, showed a Bluetooth connection to MBUX 95224, which is her Mercedes-Benz.
And so anytime we see MBUX 95224, what, if anything, does that represent?
That's going to reflect the Mercedes-Benz.
MB for Mercedes-Benz?
That's correct.
All right, moving on, at 7:05, does Maggie call anyone?
She does. She calls Marion at 705:13. It shows answered 7 seconds.
At 7:05:55, is there any reflection of the communication between Alec and Maggie Murdaugh?
There is. Alex sends a message to, in his phone, it's Maggie May, stating, "Paul said you were getting a petty. Call when you're done." That's from the Alex. That's from the extraction.
Moving on, do we have any communications between Maggie and Paul during this time period?
At 7:05:32, we have Maggie calling Paul. It shows answered 1 minute and 31 seconds.
And then does Maggie attempt to call Marion again?
That's correct.
And I'm sorry, that would be at the bottom of the screen.
Yep, that'd be
Right
the
now.
70749. Maggie Murdaugh calls Marion. And when it says Marion, it's Marion Proctor.
All right, moving on to page 8, we have another map. Can you generally explain what this represents to the jury, please?
On the top right-hand corner, we have Maggie Murdaugh with associated phone number. We have 2 points, 4147 Moselle Road in the red, and the green's going to be the Almeda property. When you're looking at this map, number 1's going to be closer to Charleston, and it's working its way, Maggie is working her way towards Moselle in this map.
All right, and the first time period you see on dot number of this number 1,
It's going to be 7:07:49
and
p.m.
the latest time period you see on the dot that's numbered 5.
That is correct. That's going to be in the Walterboro area. It's going to be 7:50:20. 7:50:20 is going to be the latest dot, and that's in the Walterboro area.
All right, moving on, looking down at 7:09:43, what if any activity do we see on Maggie's phone?
Maggie calls her mom. It shows answered 8 minutes and 17 seconds long.
Would that be Ms. Brandstetter?
That is correct.
We have an orange box. Tell the jury that quickly, please.
So that's just showing a system boot up. Could have been getting close to the Suburban, unlocking it, locking it, opening up a door, or it could just be some kind of internal components based on previous testimony from the FBI.
After that, we have 2 entries. Can you tell the jury what those 2 entries are, the time periods, and what they represent, please?
Yep. So the next 2 entries is going to be 7:14:13 to 7:22:19. It's going to be Paul Murdaugh's iPhone showing approximately 208 steps traveled during that time period. And the one below it's going to be 7:15:35 to 7:21:52. This is going to be from Alex's phone, showing that approximately 200 steps were taken during that time frame. So we have 208 steps taken from Paul during his time frame, and then Alex is around 200 steps traveled.
And both those time periods for those steps for Alec and Paul, are those generally roughly the same?
Generally the same.
Consistent?
That's correct.
7:18:44, what if any activity do you see?
Alex Murdaugh sends a text message to CB Rowe saying, "Call me, please."
Going now to page 9, at the top, those 2 entries, again, explain those 2 entries to the jury.
So the first entry is going to be Paul Murdaugh's iPhone from 7:25:03 to 7:34:47, and it's showing 139 steps taken during that time period. This is approximate. 7:28:35 to 7:37:11 is going to be Alex Murdaugh's iPhone showing approximately 47 steps traveled during that time period.
All right, 7:30 p.m., we have another data point indicating Maggie's trip home to Moselle.
That is correct.
All right, we got another map. Tell the jury what this one is, please.
This map's just showing that, her phone was pinging. It's starting at 7:30.
Whose phone is this
This is
again?
going to be Paul Murdaugh. It's going to be in the right-hand corner. So say Paul Murdaugh with the phone number on top. This is just showing where his phone was pinging on June 7, 2021, starting at 7:30, and then all the way to 8:40 p.m.
All right, we see 2 cell towers there and then some arcs. Where do those arcs intersect?
The arcs intersect close to the property at Moselle Road.
And if you would, just tell the jury the earliest time that's reflected here and the latest time that's reflected here.
The earliest time reflected is going to be 7:30:05, and the latest time reflected is going to be 7:40:21 p.m. on June 7, 2021.
So Paul's phone is at the Moselle location according to this data.
That is correct.
All right. Bottom of page 9, do we have any communications between Maggie and Marion Proctor?
We do. At 7:31:13 p.m., we show a call from Maggie to Marion at 7:39, which is the length of the call.
7 minutes and 39 seconds.
That's correct.
Does that include connection time as well?
It does.
Do we have any step data on Paul's phone in the time period around this time?
Paul's phone shows between 7:35:10 and 7:41:43 It shows roughly around 171 steps traveled during that time frame.
7:37 and 7:38, do we see any activity on Paul's phone with some of his friends?
Yeah, Paul receives a Snapchat message from Michelle Beck stating, BC, I have short-term memory loss, and that was based off his phone extraction. And then Paul Murdaugh received an iMessage from Megan Kimbrell stating, Paul.
All right, moving now to page 10. Going to 7:39:55. Can you tell the jury what that data point reflects on your summary timeline?
So from earlier testimony, you've seen this this video. This is just a thumbnail picture, and this is when it's showing it was created in Paul Murdaugh's phone. And we have a little screenshot of the creation time. It's going to show 7:39:55 is when this thumbnail was created in Paul's phone.
And remind the jury what video that is. I see we got a thumbnail there, but
Yep.
what video is that?
This is going to be that Snapchat video that was sent to a few friends of the tree. You have Alex Murdaugh on the tree that's leaning over.
All right. And again, this is when that video, at least the timestamp, was its creation?
That's correct, based on previous testimony, yes.
All right. 7:41 to 7:48, what, if anything, is reflected on Alex's phone?
We show that 29 steps were traveled on his phone, approximately between 7:41 and 7:48.
All right. And just talked about the Snapchat video. Looking at this map, whose phone is this? And explain these data points to the jury, if you would, please. Or whose phone is this first, if you would, please?
So this is going to be Paul Murdaugh's iPhone, and below it, it's going to be his iPhone location data. So this is not going to be Verizon location. This is going to be location data directly off of his phone.
So this is GPS data that's more specific?
That is correct.
All right. And we see a number of dots up here. What is this area up here generally sort of in the center of this image?
That's going to be the kennel area, and then there's that little house,
The cabin?
the cabin.
All right. And what time period in that upper box do we see GPS data on Paul's phone up there in the kennel cabin area?
We're seeing between 7:45 and 7:54 is location data for that area.
7:54, 7:56.
7:56, sorry, it's hard to see.
And then we have two data points at the bottom. Is that, where is generally that on the property?
That's going to be what previous testimony talked about, like a dove field. It's going to be past the main house, closer to the Godly Farm roadside. And that's going to be the data point at 8 and 42 seconds and 8 and 44 seconds.
8 p.m.?
That's correct, 8 p.m., June 7th.
Oh, darn it. And then down at the bottom of page 10, is there any step data on Paul's phone?
There is. It shows approximately 89 steps traveled during
What time periods?
7:45 p.m. to 7:55.
Moving on to page 11, we have a map. Tell the jury whose phone that is and what that data point is, please.
So this is going to be Maggie Murdaugh's phone. This is going to be Verizon location data. And what we see here is the tower and then the arc of the tower. This is going to be in the Walterboro area. The time is 7:50:03 p.m.
All right, and moving down, we're starting to see some references, and there's a little battery symbol on the side. What does that represent?
So that's going to represent battery life. So right here, this is going to be at 7:52:28. It's going to show Paul Murdaugh's iPhone battery at 7%.
And in your review generally of Paul's cell phone data, was it generally consistent for him to continue to use his phone even if he had a low battery life on it?
That's correct.
All right. And is that also consistent with the testimony from David Grubbs from yesterday or the day
Previous
before?
testimony, yes.
All right, below that, 7:55 time period, we have two entries. Can you explain those two entries to the jury and how they relate to each other, if anything?
So 7:55:44 to 8:05:28, we have Paul Murdaugh's iPhone showing approximately 262 steps traveled. And a close time frame from 7:55:32 to 8:05:07, we show Alex's iPhone traveling approximately 270 steps during that time period.
And then at 7:56, what is reflected as it relates to that Snapchat video?
This is when the Snapchat video referencing Alex Murdaugh would have been sent through Paul's Snapchat account to his friends, based on previous testimony.
And it was created, you already testified to this, but it was created when?
I believe 7:39:55
And it was sent out to his friends when?
at 7:56 p.m.
Moving on to page 12 at 7:57, does one of his friends respond?
Yes, he receives a Snapchat message from Brian Murdaugh
No, sorry.
stating, "Damn, man, needs some straps. Oh, it."
All right. Now we're moving into the 8 p.m. hour on June 7th, 2021, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, we have a map here. First of all, in the right corner, whose phone is this?
This is going to be Paul Murdaugh's phone. This is going to be his iPhone location data.
And starting up at the, it's sort of the top center, more to the right. Where is that location generally?
That's going to be the little cabin on the property.
All right. And what is the data point? What's the time on that data point up there?
I believe it says 8:06:20 p.m.
All right. And then we see the dots sort of moving down. And in what direction are they generally moving?
That's moving towards the main house on the property.
All right. And then down at the bottom of the screen, at what time do we see that data point stop at the main residence?
8:14.
What's the first data point then?
8:08:45 and then 8:14.
Paul's at the main
PM.
residence at what time? First?
8:08:45 p.m.
All right, and just on page 13, we have some earlier data points. Is this map kind of out of order just a little bit?
It is. So this is just going to be earlier data points at 8:05:14 and 8:04:45, just showing some location data from his iPhone.
So that one should have gone before this one, the one at the bottom of page 12,
That is correct.
which reflects Paul again getting back to the main residence at what time?
8:08:45 p.m.
Looking below, again on page 13, do we see two entries for Paul and Alex's phone? And if so, please explain to the jury what they are.
So for Alex's phone, we show between 8:05 and 8:09 that his phone approximately took 54 steps traveled during that time period. And then for Paul, we show 8:05:46 to 8:15:24. We show approximately 303 steps traveled during that time period.
Moving on to page 14, do we see that same map again of Paul's phone reflecting him arriving at the residence at 8:08?
8:08:45, correct?
And then still pinging there at what time, at the bottom time?
8:14 p.m.
Again, at 8:07, what if anything do we see?
At 8:07:20, we see that Paul is sending Snapchats to a few friends. That's based off his Snapchat records.
All right, next entry is in purple, and then there's kind of a line going from that. Explain what that purple reference, that time period references, and then the line that travels down the side of your timeline. Explain to the jury what that's going to represent generally to the various phones as we go forward.
As we go forward, anytime you see purple, that's going to represent Maggie Murdaugh's phone. And for this instant, it's going to represent on the left-hand side, the line going down. Anytime you see a line next to something, that means whatever it says on the left. So if it says device locked, it means the device was locked during those other time periods. This is going to show from 8/11/08 to 8/31/15 that Maggie's iPhone was locked. And as we move down, you can see it continue to the next page. That means during those times it's locked.
All right, so we'll see multiple of those as you go forward, just explaining time periods where various devices were locked or other things were going on.
That is correct.
All right. Moving on to page 15, we have a map. Explain to the jury whose phone this is and what it represents.
So this is going to be for CB Row, and this is a overview map. You can see Augusta, the North Augusta area, and it's showing the sector and the tower that it's pinging off of at 7/13/15 in the North Augusta area.
You say 713 or 813?
I'm sorry, 8/13/15.
All right. So CB Rowe's phone is pinging over here, way over here in Augusta. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right, moving to the next map. Whose phone is this? If you could tell whose phone this is, and then what data points you see on this particular map.
So this is going to be Paul Murdaugh's iPhone location data, so it's going to be separate from like Verizon location data. And this is showing at the area of the main house, bottom left, and the data starts at 8/14 and goes all the way to 8/35/07.
835. Paul's phone is located where?
At the main house, 4147 Moselle Road.
And down at the bottom of page 15, do we have any step reference for Paul?
We do from 8:15:55 to 8:21:45. We're showing approximately 140 steps traveled.
Paul arrived back at the residence about 8:08, you testified, is that correct?
That is correct.
At 8:17 and 14 seconds, what, if anything, do you see on Maggie's phone?
So it's highlighted purple in reference to Maggie. It's going to show that her phone ended at the connection to the Mercedes-Benz, which is the MBUX 95224. It shows that it's unplugged.
And what does that mean? What does that reference mean as it relates to Maggie's phone and the Mercedes she was driving?
It means that she unplugged her phone
From that
from that vehicle.
And the data generally reflects that she's at the residence at that point?
That is correct.
Paul 808, Maggie 817.
That is correct.
Alex's last data point on his phone was 652, right?
That is correct, based on the Verizon records.
We have at 8:17:44 p.m., do we have a battery reference for Paul?
We do. It shows that his iPhone was at 4% battery life at that time.
As we continue forward, do we see Paul continue to use this phone?
We do.
At 8:17 to 8:18, what, if anything, do we see on Maggie's phone?
We're showing approximately 38 steps taken during that time frame.
Right. And that would be after her phone disconnects from the Mercedes?
That's correct.
8:19 p.m., what do we see on Paul's phone?
We see that he connects to a PRTC Wi-Fi and that he receives a Snapchat message from Ansley Wilson stating he got the magic touch. And he also sends another outgoing text message or Snapchat message.
Right. Now, PRTC, his phone connects to PRTC. What is PRTC?
So PRTC is going to be the local internet telephone provider for this area. So it's just showing a Wi-Fi connection.
And was PRTC, to your knowledge, providing services to Moselle Road?
They're providing services to the main house and then the cabin.
All right, going below that, we have a series of communications, and whose communications are these going sort of back and forth, a series of communications?
This is going to be Paul Murdaugh's series of communications.
All right. And I'm not going to read each one or have you read each one, but are these generally communications going back and forth with his friends?
That is correct.
And on this page, they start about what time and continue through about what time?
Start around 8:23 and go all the way to 8:29.
Well,
I think we keep on going down, yeah, about 8:30. It's about 8:23 to 8:30.
all right, at 8:30 to 8:33 p.m., what, if anything, do we see on Maggie's phone?
We're showing that her phone took approximately 42 steps traveled during that time period.
All right. And that starts at what time that Maggie's phone starts reflecting steps?
8:30 p.m.
About 8:30. Going on to the next page, page 17. Going back just real quick on page 16, generally that series of communications with Paul and his friends, is he generally responding fairly quickly to the communications back and forth?
He is either, it's their Snapchat and iMessages. He's responding and using those two applications very frequently.
Now we're at the top of page 17 at 8:31 p.m. Describe to the jury generally what this data entry is.
So this is going to be a group message from John Marvin Murdaugh. He's talking about how they're planning to go visit their dad tomorrow and asking if anyone else is going. Listed here, everyone that's in that group message.
And that's generally a number of family members.
That is correct.
And the dad they're referring to is who?
It's going to be Alex's dad.
Mr. Randolph.
That is correct.
And based on your knowledge and investigation, he had a turn for the worst health-wise around this time?
That is correct.
All right, well, let's talk about that very quickly. That, did the defendant receive, or did his phone receive that text?
His phone and Maggie's phone both received the text message.
And did the defendant ever read that text, according to the phone at least?
According to the phone, it was not read until the following day, 6/8/21 at 1:44:49 p.m.
And that text came in at what time?
8:31 on the dot.
And did Maggie read that text right away, at least according to the phone, her phone?
She did not.
All right. And when did her phone finally read that text?
Around 8:49:26.
What time?
8:49:26 is when Maggie read that text.
8:49.
8:49.
At 8:31, what, if any, entry do we see?
So at 8:31:15, Maggie Murdaugh's phone unlocks and does orientation changes. And then at 8:31:18 to 8:49:26, we show that her phone was locked.
At 8:31, there's an orientation change. Does the data reflect that her phone was unlocked at that period of time?
That is correct.
All right. And then what happens after that at 8:31 and 18 seconds?
Her device is locked until 8:49:26.
8:49:26, is that correct?
8:49:26.
All right. At 8:32:25, we have entry in green and then a line going down. Can you explain to the jury those time periods and what, if any, significance they have?
So green is going to reflect Paul Murdaugh. Anytime you see green, it's going to be Paul, and purple is going to be Maggie. That's reflecting that his iPhone moved approximately 283 steps during that time period. So on the left-hand side, as we go down, and you're going to see other data entry points, if you see the green next to it, that means that those steps are being traveled during that time frame.
And now we have a map. Whose phone is that?
This is also going to be Paul Murdaugh's, and this is going to be his iPhone location data.
All right. And where is that iPhone location data located?
And that's going to be at the kennel area of the property.
All right. And tell me the time periods that he is at the kennels at this point in time.
At this point in time, he's at the kennels at 8:38:07 p.m., 8:44:53, 8:44:55, and 8:44:56.
What happens at 8:40 while Paul's phone is at the kennels?
Paul calls Rogan Gibson, shows answered for 4 minutes and 14 seconds.
Starting at what time?
8:40:20.
And if you have about a 4-minute call, what time does that end?
8:44.
At 8:44:34, what, if anything, does Paul's phone indicate?
So at 8:44:34, Paul Murdaugh initiates a FaceTime video call with Rogan Gibson. It shows answered 11 seconds long. And that's based off of Paul and Rogan's information.
And then at 8:44:55, what does it reflect on Paul's phone?
This is when this video was extracted and created through Paul's phone, which shows Alex, Maggie, and, well, you can hear Alex, Maggie, and Paul in the background.
That's the kennel video at 8:44.
That's a kennel video that's been in previous testimony, correct?
Following below that, at 8:47 and 8:48, does Paul continue to communicate with his phone?
He does. He uses the iMessage feature in his phone to send a couple messages to Megan Kimbrell. And it looks like it's based off of movie recommendations.
Are those communications for 10 minutes or just for a couple of minutes or a minute or so?
A minute or so.
Going to the top of page 19. What time do we see there?
8:48:29.
And what's going on? What's Paul doing?
He's receiving a message from Megan, and we have some backlight on data at 8:48:56.
All right. And the next entry, tell me the time period for that entry.
8:48:58 to 8:49:01.
All right. And what happens there?
Paul Murdaugh's phone that's the last time that it was unlocked, ever. $8:49:01.
And the next activity that we'll see on Paul's phone occurred when?
We have a backlight off from 8:49 to,
Going back to 8:48 to 8:49:01, you said that was when Paul's phone was last unlocked?
that's correct.
Now continue on with that data entry. What does it indicate? What's the next time ever that Paul's phone shows any activity?
10:18. That's when,
And the 8:48 to 8:49
oh,
p.m.?
I'm sorry, next activity notification is going to be the Rogan Gibson call at 9:58:35. That's the next time that any activity or notification shows up on his phone.
Looking at this entry with the green line on the right side, what are those time periods there, and what do they represent starting at 8:49:01?
Starting at 8:49:01 to 10:34:23, Paul's phone shows device locked.
Was it ever open again until it died at 10:34:23?
It was not.
8:49:01 is the last time before that Paul had ever unlocked his phone.
That is correct.
Just a few seconds later, does Maggie's phone reflect any activity?
It does. 8:49:26, so approximately 26 seconds later, her phone unlocks for a text message notification, and it implements an orientation change.
And was that text message about Mr. Randolph that you earlier referred to?
That is correct, that group message. I believe it was in response to Lynn.
And at 8:49:31, here in red, what happens to Maggie's phone? Just seconds later.
Maggie Murdaugh's phone locks forever
Forever. Until when?
until it's recovered the next day at 1:10 p.m.
On June 8th.
on June 8th by law enforcement.
Do both Maggie and Paul's phone lock forever around 8:49?
They do.
At 8:49:35, does Paul's phone receive a text from anyone?
It does. It receives a text from Brogan Gibson.
And what does that text say?
See if you can get a good picture of it. Mary Ann, referring to his girlfriend, wants to send it to a girl we know that's a vet. Tell him to sit and stay, and he shouldn't move around too much. That shows unread.
You never read that.
Never read it.
According to the investigation, is that the conversation that Paul and Rogan were actively engaged in starting at 8:40?
That is correct.
The kennel video was at what time?
8:44.
And then the defendant repeatedly denied that he was ever at those kennels with the victims just minutes before their phones go silent forever.
Objection.
Basis for the objection.
Leading. It's leading.
Don't leave it, but let's restate the question.
Did the defendant repeatedly deny ever being at the kennels at that
Yes.
time period?
Yes, he did. Various interviews with law enforcement.
And was that kennel video, what time was that kennel video?
8:44.
And what time do Paul and Maggie's phones go silent forever?
8
Several times.
Objection is overruled.
8:49 is when their phones went silent forever.
At 8:53, do we see any activity on Maggie's phone?
We do. At this time, as you can see to the right, her phone is locked, but we do see that 59 steps were traveled over the period of 8:53 to 8:55.
And that just means the phone was moving, correct?
That is correct.
Do we see some orientation changes as well?
We do. Between 8:53:08 and 8:55:32, we see various orientation changes, which would indicate that someone has the phone based on previous testimony.
Moving on to page 20. At the top, we have 8:55, and we have a reference to a data point. Can you explain that to the jury, whose phone that is, and just generally what that is based on information gathered in the investigation?
8:55:48?
8:55:48, yes, sir.
That's just a internal application running in the background for Maggie Murdaugh's phone. It's just the iPhones will take a random snapshot of what's going on in the phone. So that's just reflecting that there was some, behind the scenes stuff happening in her phone. It's not saying that someone was actively using it.
Hold on for me just real quick. Right here at the bottom of page 13, we have a reference to step data on Alex's phone.
That's correct.
And what are those time periods?
8:05:35 to 8:09:52, it's showing 54 steps traveled.
All right. We'll turn to page 20. What suddenly happens to Alex's phone around 9:02?
Pretty much wakes up
And what data point is reflected?
from 9:02:18 p.m. to 9:06:47. It shows 283 steps traveled.
And how long? How many minutes, roughly?
5 minutes, 5-6 minutes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 521 to your testimony and see if you recognize that.
I do.
And tell me what that is, please.
This is going to be a pay spreadsheet for Paul Murdaugh, Maggie Murdaugh, and Alex Murdaugh that I created.
All right. Your Honor, this time I would offer States 521 into evidence.
No objection.
Submit it.
In general, if I could have the screen. All right, tell the jury real quick, as we look at this exhibit just admitted, just generally, we have at the top, tell them quickly what this is and what these columns represent. Explain this chart, if you would.
First column entry, that's just going to be from all the various entries from the phone data. We have a start time, we have a end time, we have the time elapsed in between the estimated amount of steps, and then we have a steps per minute calculation, which is going to be the far right.
And the steps, those are the data entries in this timeline that you've been testifying to as reflected from the phone data.
That is correct.
And then the last column is just a simple calculation of steps based on the time periods of those readings.
That is correct.
And the last step readings that we have on Paul's phone are from what time to what time?
The last step reading from Paul's phone is 8:32 to 8:42.
We have one for Maggie as well, is that correct?
We do. Her last time frame is going to be 8:53 to 8:55.
And then down at the bottom, who do we have?
This is going to be Alex Murdaugh's pay spreadsheet.
Let's talk about this a little bit. If you would, start with entry 21. And what time periods is that? This is Alex's phone, correct?
This is going to be Alex Murdaugh's phone.
Right, time period?
6:52 to 7:02.
How many steps?
Approximately 283.
And how many steps per minute based on a simple math calculation?
Estimated 29.34.
All right. 22, time period, steps, and steps per minute.
7:03 to 7:11. Approximately 165 steps. Estimated 19.20 steps per minute.
24,
24 is going to be 7:28 to 7:37. Approximately 47 steps. And estimated 5.46 steps per minute.
25,
7:41 to 7:48. We're showing approximately 29 steps, 3.97 steps per minute.
26,
26 is showing 7:55 to 8:05, 270 steps, approximately 28.2 steps per minute.
28,
28 is going to be the 8:05 to 8:09. It's showing approximately 74 steps. That's 17.28 steps per minute.
and as you testified, that was the last entry on Alex's phone before we get to the 9 o'clock hour, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what time was the video again?
8:44 p.m.
Let's talk about 27. What's the time period there?
Time period is going to be 9:02 to 9:06.
How many steps?
283 steps, 70.75 steps per minute estimated.
He was a busy guy right then, wasn't he?
Appears.
What was the average steps per minute from 9:02 to 9:06?
70.75.
And was that far in excess of any readings on his phone in those prior entries?
According to this table, yes.
Could I have the computer back again, please? We have a map here on Paul's phone. Tell me very quickly what that represents.
We do. This is going to be based off of Verizon records for Paul Murdaugh, and it's showing 903.22 and 903.30, just showing what cell towers it was pinging off of.
Again, is his phone still locked during this time?
That is correct. Paul and Maggie's phones are still locked this time.
Bottom of page 20, we got a pink box. What does that reflect?
That's from the FBI telemetry data, just showing a system startup with the telemetry system.
On which
It's gonna be,
vehicle?
Alex Murdaugh's 2021 Suburban.
Is there a CDR reference to Mary Ann Dempsey attempting to call Paul?
There is.
Mary Ann Dempsey again is who?
Rogan Gibson's girlfriend at the time.
We have two entries after that. Can you explain those entries to the jury and tell the jury what those are?
Yep. So at 9:03:52 to 9:04:23, Maggie Murdaugh's iPhone backlight is on. At 9:04:23, Alex Murdaugh calls Maggie Murdaugh, shows 18 seconds in his CDRs. This does not show on that Dylan Hightower first extraction or the second extraction. And it also shows missed on Maggie's phone extraction.
That one's missing from Alex's phone, correct?
That is correct. In the call log, it is missing.
At 9:05:15, is there any activity on Alex's phone?
It shows that Alex Murdaugh calls Randolph Murdaugh, 18 seconds. Does not show on Dylan Hightower extraction or the second extraction, just on the CDRs.
We have a pinkish box. What does that represent?
Pinkish box is going to represent that system startup for the telemetry data for the 21 Suburban.
At 9:06:12, what happens?
Between 9:06:12 and 9:06:20, Maggie Murdaugh's phone implements orientation change from portrait to orientation sideways.
That starts at 9:06:12.
Yes, and it goes to 9:06:20.
The orientation starts to change. What happens 2 seconds after that orientation starts to change?
At 9:06:14, so that's 2 seconds afterwards, the phone receives an incoming call from Alex.
Was that call on the call log when Dylan Hightower downloaded the defendant's phone?
It was not.
– 9:06:14 and 9:06:15. Are those referencing that missed call from that showed up on Maggie's phone?
That is correct.
And 9:06:20, we're still seeing an orientation change?
Yep, that's when the orientation ended.
Moving down to the bottom of page 21, we have a bluish and a green box. Tell the jury what that is.
So, according to the FBI telemetry data, the blue is going to indicate a shift in the transmission, and then green is going to show driving.
The Suburban's underway.
That is correct, according to the telemetry data.
At the bottom of page 21, is there another call from Alex Murdaugh's phone to Maggie's phone?
There is at 9:06:52, Alex calls Maggie. It shows 7 seconds long, and that's based off his CDR since it was deleted off the call history.
It wasn't on Alex's extraction, correct?
It was not.
2 missed calls?
2 missed calls.
Moving to page 22, at the top, what, if anything, does Alex Murdaugh's phone show in relation to the Suburban?
So it's just showing that, the device connected to the car. When you get in your car, your phone will pair. It's just showing a device connected to iPhone.
And then the next entry, there's a time range there. Explain that time range to the jury and what that means.
So starting at 9:07 and going till 9:44,
9 what?
sorry, 9:31:44, her backlight is off.
The backlight is off. That entire time period.
That entire time period. It was on, but now for this time period, from 9:07 to 9:31, it's going to show off.
Going to this map, is that some of the cast data that you did, that you've testified to the jury?
It is. This is a previous slide that we had up. It's showing at 9:07:06. The Suburban is leaving 4147 Moselle Road.
2 calls to Maggie. Does the Suburban just take a quick right and go down this road right there to the kennels, or does it just continue straight on?
It just continues straight on.
Doesn't stop by the kennels for a second, does it?
It,
Does it stop by the kennels?
his vehicle does not stop by the kennels.
It's right on going.
It's right on going to Moselle Road, makes a right.
Going down to the bottom of page 22.
This is just another data point. It's showing the approximate location of Maggie Murdaugh's phone when it was located. And at 9:08:36, it's showing 42 miles an hour on Moselle Road. And in reference, we're coming up to Godley Farm Road on Moselle Road. This is at 9:08:36.
And then we have, below that, we have a reference to a data point that you previously showed to the jury at 9:08:42.
Yep, it's going to be on the next page. It's going to be at 9:08:42. It's showing approximate miles per hour 45 in reference to where the phone was found the next day.
And what's the speed on the defendant's vehicle at that point?
45 miles an hour.
And is Maggie's backlight off during this time period, this entire time period?
Her phone is locked, yes. And the backlight is off.
At 9:08:58, what do we see?
Alex Murdaugh sends a iMessage to Maggie stating, "Going to check on M, be right back." This shows unread in Maggie's phone.
Moving on, does Alex's phone reflect a series of calls being made?
It does.
Tell me about the first one.
First one's going to be at 9:10:47. Alex calls Buster. It shows 60 seconds long. That's based off of CDR since it's not in his phone extractions.
And that's again also missing from that entire series of events around the time of the murders that was not on Alex's extraction when it was downloaded.
That is correct. It's not in the call log.
I'll move on now.
Been asked and answered.
Down at 9:12:14, what if any activity is reflected on the defendant's phone?
Alex Murdaugh calls Chris Wilson. It shows 42 seconds long. That's based off his CDRs because it's not in any of his phone extractions or call log.
Its connection time as well.
It does.
Moving on to page 24, we have a map. Tell the jury quickly what this map reflects.
This is going to be an Alex Murdaugh location map from Verizon. It's going to show at 9:12:14 what tower and what sector it's pinging off of, And then at 9:18:46, what tower is pinging off of? The red dot's going to be Moselle, the green one is going to be the Alameda property.
Moving on to the next map, is that similar information of the defendant's trip from Moselle to Alameda?
It's similar, it's just going to show you the coverage areas for each tower.
And then on page 26, what does this map reflect?
This is going to be Verizon records for CB Row. Far right, the little red dot, that's going to be Moselle. Blue dot is going to be CB Row's home in Brunson. This is just showing the cell tower data at the time frame of 9:14, 9:20, and 9:21,
And?
and 11:37 p.m. This is close to Fairfax, just for reference.
He's pinging in the arc near his home over here in Fairfax, is that right?
That is correct. The
And
home's
where's
gonna be the-
Moselle?
Moselle's going to be that red dot to the right.
At 9:18:46, what if any activity is reflected on the defendant's phone?
At 9:18:46, Alex Murdaugh calls John Marvin Murdaugh. It shows 106 seconds, and that's from the CDR since it's not on either phone extraction call log.
All right, we're on page 26 now. Tell the jury quickly what this map reflects.
There's also going to be Verizon records from Alex Murdaugh's phone plotted. It's showing starting at 6:20:34 all the way to 9:46:35. It's showing from the cell tower in the sector of Alameda.
You said 6:24 or 9:20?
I'm sorry, 9:20:34.
So roughly 20-minute period at
Rough-
Alameda?
Roughly 20 minutes, correct.
Moving over to page 27, what is this map?
This is just going to be a zoomed-in picture from the previous one, just showing the same time frame, just showing a little bit more zoomed in from the cell tower in proximity to Alameda.
At 9:20:34, what if anything happens on the defendant's phone?
At this time, Chris Wilson calls Alex at 9:20:34. It shows for 131 seconds, and we got this data from his CDR since it does not show on either one of his distractions. And during that time, Claude CB Row at 9:21:36 calls, but Alex does not answer it.
And again, his phone was pinging back at his house in Fairfax at that time period, correct?
That is correct.
We see the blue and green box. Tell the jury what's happening with Alex's Suburban at this point.
So at 21:22, which that's military time, it's going to be 9:22. Green is going to show vehicle movement, and blue is going to show transmission shifting.
And is that consistent with the OnStar data at 9:22:49 of him arriving in Alameda?
It is.
And on page 28, is that data point that you just referenced?
That is correct, 9:22:39.
Starting about 9:22, does Alex's phone reflect any step activity?
It does 9:22:39 to 9:32:14. We're showing approximately 195 steps taken on his phone.
At 9:24:13, what if anything does the defendant phones reflect?
He calls Libby Murdaugh, which would be his mom, shows 20 seconds long. That's from his CDR, it's not on either phone extraction.
And that would be the landline at Alameda.
That is correct.
After that, is there another missed call from Rogan to Paul?
There is at 9:26:06 p.m.
And then at 9:31:44, is that the first backlight activity on Maggie's phone since that time period you testified earlier about 9:07?
That is correct.
At At 9:34, around that same time, is there any communication on Maggie's phone around the time of that backlight activity?
There is at 9:34:14, Rogan Gibson sends an iMessage to Maggie Murdaugh saying, tell Paul to call me. And that shows unread,
Never read?
never read.
Do we also have backlight activity associated with a missed call to Maggie's phone?
We do at 9:34:20.
Up here at 9:34 to 9:36:20, it says Maggie Murdaugh's iPhone backlight. Is that backlight off?
That's going to be backlight off.
Just the off is missing from the words?
That is correct.
9:35 to 9:45, 10-minute period. Is there any activity on Alex's phone?
It's showing approximately 60 steps taken on his phone during that time frame. And also, as you see on the right-hand side, Paul and Maggie's phones are locked. It's referenced with the lines and the color coordination on the right-hand side.
And those lines have been continuing through the past few
They've been
pages.
continuing, correct?
We have some orange and purple boxes. Quickly tell the jury what those are.
So the orange color is going to be that system startup from previous testimony from Falkowski. And then the pink is going to be engine running propulsion.
And is there another missed call from Rogan to Paul?
There is at 9:42:17, there's a missed call. And then we have Alex's Suburban showing a device connection at 9:42:49, which is consistent with the data
All right.
telemetry.
Suburban's leaving Alameda around this time.
That is correct, 9:43:18. We show it starting at 2 miles an hour.
We have some additional telemetry consistent with him leaving.
We do.
Is there any activity on Maggie's phone at this point?
So at 9:44:04 to 9:45:04, it shows that her backlight was off.
And is there a missed call associated with that backlight activity or around the same time?
Yes, Maggie Murdaugh received a call from, it's going to show as PA in the phone extraction, which is it's Alex's number, and it shows missed.
And was that call missing from Alex's phone extraction?
It was missing from both functions.
Going down to 9:46:35, what if any activity do you see?
It shows that Alex Murdaugh called Paul Murdaugh, shows 18 seconds long, that's with the connection time, and that is based off of Alex's CDRs. It does not show in either extractions.
9:47:23, what do we see, if anything?
Alex sends a iMessage to Maggie stating, "Call me, babe," and that shows unread in Maggie Murdaugh's extraction.
Do we see some backlight activity around the time of that text
do.
message, that unread text message?
We do, a couple seconds.
Do we have a map here? Just generally, what does this reflect?
We do. This is going to reflect the coverage area of the cell tower between Moselle and Alameda.
And this is whose phone?
This is going to be Alex Murdaugh's phone. This is going to be his Verizon records, not location data from phone.
Moving towards the direction of Moselle?
That is correct.
Additional maps consistent with that as testified to by Matt Wild?
That is correct. Just showing coverage area.
At 9:52:15, what if any activity is on Alex's phone?
So at 9:52:15, Alex Murdaugh sends an iMessage to Chris Wilson saying, "Call me if up."
Just around the time where he's running 80 miles an hour?
That's correct. 9:51:43 is when we have the 80.16 mile per hour.
Moving over to the next page, is there any further activity?
Alex ends up receiving a call from Chris Wilson at 9:52:59. Shows 42 seconds long with connection. That is also not on either extraction. And at 9:53:55, he receives another call from Chris Wilson. Shows 123 seconds, and that is on his CDRs, but not on either phone extraction.
And then at about 9:56, 57, what if any activity do you see on Alex's phone?
So from 9:56:57 to 10:06:57, it shows that Alex Murdaugh traveled approximately 231 steps traveled during that time.
Starting at what time?
9:56:57 to 10:06:57.
Remind the jury what time the 911 call was.
It was 10:06:14.
At 9:57 and 9:58, what activities reflected on Paul's record?
So Rogan Gibson calls Paul Murdaugh, shows 4 seconds, and that's based off of CDRs. And then at 9:58:35, Rogan sends a text message to Paul stating, "Yo."
And that hits Paul's phone?
That is correct. And
Is it overread?
it shows unread from his phone extraction.
We have a bunch of green and blue boxes. Is this more telemetry data from the Suburban?
This is, the green's going to represent drives, and blue is going to represent some kind of gear shifting with the vehicle.
But the GM OnStar data reflects what, about 10 on the dot?
It reflects him pulling into the driveway at 4147 Moselle Road, the main entrance.
And where did the Suburban go first?
The Suburban went directly to the house, bottom left.
It didn't go to the kennels first, it went to the house first?
That is correct.
And what time does it arrive at the house? Or what time right there in that map? That's what, the map at the top?
That's what, the time that it pulls into the driveway.
Sorry. 1 second. At 10:03:36 p.m., there's 2 entries around that time. Can you tell the jury what any activity you see as it relates to Maggie's phone?
So Alex Murdaugh calls Maggie Murdaugh's phone at 10:03:58, and backlight is on associated with that.
And then starting about 10:04:08, what don't we see for the time period?
So from 10:04:08 to 10:46:40, there is a gap in activity. I don't see any activity on Maggie's phone at all through the Knowledge C database.
At 10:05:06, what, if anything, does the data reflect?
It reflects Alex's Suburban leaving the main house based on the GM data.
Going over to page 35. Is this one of your cast maps?
Yes, it is. It's 10:05:06, and it's showing the time the Suburban starts to leave down to the kennels.
And going to the next map, what time is that?
Next map's going to be 10:05:57. That's the arrival time at the kennels.
According to that GPS location data.
Yes, sir, from GM and OnStar.
What's that time again?
It's going to be 10:05:57.
Down at the bottom of the page, what time is the 911 call?
10:06:14.
How many seconds is that from the time that the Suburban arrives at the kennels and he calls 911?
Roughly 20 seconds.
20 seconds.
That's correct.
Do you recall the defendant's statement to law enforcement shortly after the crime? That he went over and checked the bodies and that sort of thing?
I do.
What, if anything, in his statements to law enforcement did the defendant say about what he did when he arrived at the scene?
The defendant stated that he went and checked on Paul and Maggie to check the bodies.
And from the moment the Suburban arrived at the kennels, how long did it take for that 911 call to be made?
Less than 20 seconds.
Another call from Rogan to Paul that never be answered.
That is correct. 10:08:27, never answered.
At 10:11:54, what happens?
This is when Alex Murdaugh was on the 911 call, stated he was going to go get a gun. This was at 10:11:54. This is when the Suburban is shown leaving the kennels.
And down at the bottom of page 36, we see another map. What does that reflect?
That's going to be 10:13:54. And on the next page, it's going to show the map. That's when his Suburban left the main house going back to the kennels.
What time does the location data reflect that the Suburban arrived back at the kennels?
10:14:30 is when it's going to reflect driving back to the kennels. Or approximately. This is when he's coming into the view of the kennels.
And then what time does the 911 call end?
So the 911 call is going to end at 10:17. And then the step data is what the 10:16:37 p.m. is referring to. That's going to be when the step data ended. I believe it was 594 steps taken.
After the 911 call, does the defendant's phone reflect any activity?
It does. It shows him calling Randy Murdaugh. Shows 16 seconds long with the connectivity time. And that's based off his CDRs. It was not found on either extraction. And then also we have a 10:18 where he's sending a text message to Randy saying, please call me emergency.
Is there step activity around this time when Alex is phone?
There is 10:18:53 to 10:28:05. We're showing approximately 525 steps taken during that time frame.
And does Paul's backlight come on again at 10:18?
It does 10:18:08 to 10:18:20. We're showing backlight.
Was that after the 911 call had ended?
No. Sorry, yes. Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. So 10:17 is when the 911 call ended, and this would have been at 10:18:08. So this would have been right after.
And the last text that hit Paul's phone was from whom?
Rogan Gibson. I believe it said yo.
Paul's phone still hitting, of course, at the kennel location.
That is correct. This is going to be off of his iPhone location data.
And where was Paul's phone found again, according to your knowledge of the investigation?
It was found on Paul's rear end, facing up.
Top of page 39, we have a map. What does that reflect?
This is going to reflect Verizon records for Alex Murdaugh, starting at 10:19 all the way to 11:18, and it's just showing the sector it was pinging off of. That's in the area of Moselle Road.
All right, and we have a range of times there from the 10-ish hour to the 11-ish hour p.m. with Alex phone being there.
That is correct.
Does Alex phone reflect a couple of calls that were not on his extraction but in the CDRs?
It does.
To what people? And what does the defendant do just seconds later?
Calls Rogan Gibson.
Was that on the Dillon Hightower extraction?
It was not on the Dillon Hightower extraction or the second one.
You mentioned before that there was a group text about Mr. Randolph's health. And when did the defendant finally read that text?
On the following day, so that'd be June 8th, 2021.
at 10:22:09. Was there a text that the defendant read?
There was 10/22/09, he received a group text message from Michael Gunn and a few people saying she brought the heat from Miami Boys, and it was read the same night at 10:38:42 p.m. An associated picture is below.
The 10:24 and the 10:25 hours, what, if anything, does the defendant's phone reflect?
Alex tries to call Rogan, and then he sends an iMessage stating, "Call me." And then he attempts to do a FaceTime, and this is going to be the first log that we see on his phone records is going to be this FaceTime call with Rogan on his extraction for the day of June 7th, 2021.
Multiple attempts to contact Rogan.
That's correct.
And what time does law enforcement arrive on the scene?
Approximately 10:25 is when the first deputy arrived on scene.
10:25?
That is correct.
We see step activity around this time on Alex's phone?
We do, so we had a group of step activity end at 10:28:54, and then we had a new group start at 10:28:54 that goes to 10:37:27. It's showing 320 steps traveled approximately.
And does the defendant's phone reflect any phone activity after that?
It reflects at 10:29:17 a call to Randy that shows answered 42 seconds long. That's also not on the extraction. And then a FaceTime with Rogan at 10:30:31 that does show on the extraction.
That was attempted FaceTime?
That's correct. I believe in previous testimony, Rogan said he was asleep during the time.
Moving on to page 41.
This is going to be a Paul Murdaugh Verizon records. And this is just going to show the the tower and then just the location. And you can see Moselle Road within it. This is a 10:34 time period.
Is there a display on activity on Paul's phone, but also a phone call from Nolan Tootin around that time?
That is correct. Correct. Around 10:34, it's showing display on and then a Nolan Tootin phone call.
And then finally, what time does Paul's phone finally die?
Paul's phone finally dies at 10:34:24 p.m. on June 7th, 2021.
Almost 2 hours after the criminal video?
That is correct.
Maggie's phone stays locked until when?
The following day, June 8th, around 1:10 p.m. when the investigators find it.
When the investigators find it.
That is correct.
I'm going to show you a couple of exhibits. We're almost done, and everybody's hungry. Show you what's been marked as 523 to this trial. States 523. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And tell the jury just where that's from, please.
This is going to be a text message I retrieved from one of the Cellbrite extraction reports. It's me from Paul to Alex.
Your Honor, this time I'd offer States 523 into evidence.
Your Honor, we would renew the previous objections, have no additional objections. 403.
That's the exhibit.
I'm going to show 523. And this is a text from which person to which person?
So this is going to be from Paul Murdaugh, and it's going to be to, it says voicemail. That's going to refer to Alex, because this is obtained from his phone. It's going to be the owner. So that's going to be Paul to Alex.
What's the date?
The date is going to be May 6, 2021 at 10:52:13 a.m.
And what does it say?
It says, I am still in EB because when you get here, we need to talk. Mom found several bags of pills in your computer bag. And this is again from Paul to Alex on May 6.
States 553. See if you recognize this exhibit.
I do.
Tell me what that is.
This is going to be some searched items that I obtained from Maggie Murdaugh's extraction report.
Your Honor, this time I'd offer States 553, I believe, without additional objection.
No additional objections, Your Honor.
Submit it.
And tell the jury what this exhibit is, please.
So this is going to be Google searches. Far left, you're going to have a timestamp. The source, which is going to be Safari, that's for Apple. And then the value is going to be the searched item. And on May 26, 2021 at 11:21 p.m., Maggie searched green gel pill P30. She also searched 11:20 p.m. a green gel pill P30, white pill 30 on one side RP, and if you look to the right, you're going to see a column that says deleted. That one is showing yes has been deleted, and then if we go down to row number 4, it's going to be May 6, 2021 from Safari, white pill 30 on one side RP, and that's also shown deleted. Could you slide it down just a little bit? I just want to make sure there's not another entry. Okay.
show you West Market Stage 556 and see if you recognize this exhibit.
I do.
And tell just generally what is this?
This is going to be a text message thread between Alex Murdaugh and Russell Lafitte.
And at the time, where did Russell Lafitte work again, to your understanding?
Palmetto State Bank.
And Your Honor, this time I would offer Stage 556, I believe, without additional objection.
No additional objections beyond the 403, 404 objections previously ruled upon.
It's the exhibit.
Right, I'm gonna put Stage 556 up on the screen. And again, tell the people on this text and the time and what it says.
So this is going to be a text from voicemail, which is going to be Alex Murdaugh's phone, to Russell Lafitte. It was sent on June 3rd, 2021 at 3:22 p.m. This is from Alex stating, "I need to extend farm credit line another $600,000. My dad will sign also if needed. How much turnaround will that take?" And again, that's from Alex to Russell Lafitte on June 3rd, 2021.
Show you two final exhibits, States 554 and 555, and you recognize those.
I do.
And where were those found?
These are found from Maggie Murdaugh's iPhone extraction.
Your Honor, this time I offer 554 and 555 into evidence, I believe without objection.
Okay.
They're admitted.
States 554, who is that?
It's going to be Maggie Murdaugh and her sister.
States 555, who is that?
It's going to be Buster Murdaugh, Maggie Murdaugh, and Paul Murdaugh.
Thank you, Special Agent. Please answer any questions the defense may have.
Ladies and gentlemen, we break for lunch now. For an hour and 15 minutes. Please do not discuss the case. Please do not discuss your testimony during lunch. And we'll be in recess.
All right.